Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, Discovering Solar Traffic Beacons and Signs with Carmanah. My name is Connor, and I'll be your moderator. Before we get started today, just had a few quick housekeeping items I wanted to run through. All phone lines are muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar chat within your toolbar. The presentation will be about 45 minutes or so, which will give us some time for questions at the end. If you'd like a copy of today's slides, they are available within the handout section of your GoToWebinar toolbar. By attending today's webinar, you are eligible to earn TARP points through IMSA. For those of you who provided your IMSA number during this webinar registration process, Western Systems will go ahead and handle that for you. And lastly, today's webinar will be made available for you to view anytime on demand. You'll get an email on Thursday with a link to view the webinar. All right, with the housekeeping out of the way, I'm very excited to introduce today's presenter, Kai Atram, Territory Manager for Western Systems. Kai, the floor is yours.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay, Connor? Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Carmanah traffic beacons and sign solutions. I'm filling in for Jason Spencer, who's our territory manager in Oregon. He had some computer issues. Real convenient. No, I'm just kidding. He's a good guy, and I think he just had something come up, so no worries. We'll roll with it. So feel free at the end. We'll have time for any questions you guys may have. So I want to start off by thanking you guys for kind of joining us. This is unprecedented time for all of us, but we're doing what we can to make things work. We're still open for business. You should have contact information for a territory manager for your particular neck of the woods. We will be working remotely, but for the foreseeable future, we're still taking orders, and the only thing that's really changing is we're trying to do some of the sales visits that we'd otherwise do in person over the internet. So thank you guys for bearing with us as we figure this out together, but expect to see in the coming weeks a number of webinars that we would otherwise set up as in-person meetings. So without further ado, we'll get into some of Carmanah Traffic Solutions and what makes Carmanah unique. So Carmanah started in 1996. They're actually the first solar-powered, self-contained LED marine lanterns for navigation and hazard marking. They've since then gone through a bunch of iterations, and today they focus only on the traffic signal business. In fact, in 2019, they sold off their marine, airfield, and a couple other lines they have. So now they're focused solely on traffic and providing LED solutions at the street. You guys might have heard of the IA-21 interim approval for RRFBs. For a while there, we weren't sure if RRFBs were going to be approved by the FHWA. That was because they're actually patented by the guy who founded them, and FHWA won't give approval for patented devices. So Carmanah came in and for a couple $1 million actually bought out the patents and then released them so that everybody, including their competitors, would be able to sell the RRFBs. That showed Carmanah's commitment to street safety, and even though they could have just said, "Oh, we're going to, withhold the RRFBs for everybody," they decided that the streets would be safer with everybody being able to sell these. They continue to grow. In 2018, they acquired a company called IDC, or Information Display Company, out of the Portland, Oregon area. IDC was a provider of primarily radar feedback signs, but they also dabbled in some RRFBs and school beacons. For the most part, they've just taken the SpeedCheck line and moved forward with that as a way to supplement their existing LED portfolio. Carmanah doesn't sell anything direct. They go through distributors such as Western Systems. Western Systems is the distributor in Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and Alaska. Let's see. Some of the products. what exactly are we trying to do out here? Well, Carmanah's stance on roadway safety is that there's just too many people who are getting killed year over year. You can see the numbers we've got up here on screen, 5977. That's the number of pedestrians killed in crashes with motor vehicles. 72%, the percent of pedestrian fatalities occurring at non-intersections. That's why you'll see as part of this presentation and part of the pitches when we're coming out and talking about Carmanah, they're primarily focused on solutions that are at mid-block crossings, because that's where pedestrian fatalities are the greatest. 1 in 3, the number of traffic deaths in the U.S. where speed is a factor. Again, that brings into Carmanah, bring in the SpeedCheck radar feedback line online so that they could supplement their RRFBs, school beacons, flashers, 24-hour flashers, those kinds of things. 3 times, that's the odds of being in a crash when not driving the speed limit. So this is an infographic that shows you everything that Carmanah sells. You've got LED enhanced signs. Those are meant to run either activated when a vehicle drives up or running 24 hours. 24-hour flasher and warning signs. Those can be 8-inch or 12-inch post-top beacon style signs. Radar feedback signs. Those have a radar on board and they're triggered when vehicles are driving above the speed limit. Crosswalk and school zone beacons and signs. And then, of course, RRFBs. Carmanah's product suite is easy to understand and easy to size. They have 3 different lines, an E series, an F series, and a G series. The E series is a compact 13-watt solar engine. The F series has a 30-watt solar engine. The cool thing about the F series system is it's got enough room in there for a third-party device. So if you were to open that pizza box, so to speak, up, you'd see solar charge controller, slot for 2 batteries, and then a slot for a third-party device. This gives you the ability to do things like audible push button, add a cell modem, add a radar, and then the G series cabinet, which is the large modular cabinet. What differentiates the G cabinet is the solar engine is not integrated into the brains of the rest of the system like they are in the E and F. But the G series being modular, if you need to upsize it, you can go from 50 to 80, all the way up to 120-watt solar panels. Also, the cabinet gives you a little bit more flexibility because obviously you have a lot more space in there. So 3 panel options and also a lot more battery options. Again, here's an infographic of each of the products that Carmanah carries: crosswalks, RRFB crosswalks, circular beacon crosswalks, school zone beacons, and 24-hour flashers. The cool thing about Carmanah is it's, like I said, it's a modular system. So each of the E series, they actually have the same solar engine. It doesn't matter what you're trying to drive. It's just driving an LED that's being activated by a different source. So RRFBs, obviously push button activated, circular beacons push button, school zone beacons are activated by a time switch or a cell modem or a clock. And then the 24-hour flashing beacon, it's set to normally close, and so it's always just flashing away. Crosswalks, key aspect of walkability. Stats, 16% of the people injured in traffic incidents were pedestrians, 18 to 28%. That's the effectiveness of crosswalk paint alone at stopping drivers in presence of a pedestrian. So having these RRFBs up there, they've got proven yield rates and reduced mid-block collisions with pedestrians. As I was saying, this chart shows exactly how effective RRFBs are. You can see an uncontrolled mid-block crossing has an 18% yield rate. Interestingly enough, at 15%, there's a round beacon side-mounted flasher, which Carmanah still sells and still on the washed out approved list. So you will see some of those out there. Round beacons overhead, they're not incredibly easy to see down the road, so they have pretty poor yield rates. In roadway warning lights, they can be effective, but they're really only the most effective for the car right in front of them. They're also susceptible to being knocked out of the road when you've got snow plows, snow, doing road work. So highly effective are the RRFBs. We see those both on the regular signposts, but also overhead. Anywhere you can get them out there, they're really bright and easy to see. Yield rate, up to 96% with RRFBs. They're easy to install. As I'd mentioned, you saw the E and the F series. The E and the F series are integrated to the top of the pole. So everything that you have to install, short of the signs and the push button, actually fit all in that housing. You can use existing crew and equipment. So the E and the F series are meant to mount on just regular signposts. So either a 2 to 3 inch telespar or 2 to 3 inch round pole. It can mount right on top of there, which makes install a lot easier. What we see a lot is that the difference between using a signpost and a 4 to 4.5 inch spun aluminum pole is the difference between having to hire a contractor or not. A lot of people are well set up for using telespar and round signposts, and so the E and the F series is a good solution for those agencies. Why solar? As I mentioned, easy to retrofit, no trenching or in-ground wiring. You know, solar's got a good name in the Pacific Northwest because we're all about going green and sustainability and whatnot. But the other part of it too is it's really hard to get power to a lot of these locations. So a lot of times solar is done out of necessity. We'll talk about some of the concerns that come with solar applications in the Pacific Northwest, but we've got some ways to mitigate that and make sure your solar install is going to be sustainable. Radar feedback signs. They measure and display driver speed and provide feedback to drivers to self-correct as needed. There's two categories of signs. These are dictated by the MUTCD. Carmanah only provides two different size digits. One's for over 45 miles an hour, that's 18 inches, and one's for under 45 miles an hour, that's 12 to 15 inch digits. They can be a standalone system, or each of them has the ability to drive external LED modules. So some people like to have a slow down sign. It's also driven by beacons. You can schedule it by time of day, just like you would kind of a school calendar, or you can just have it on all the time. Every unit is shipped with calendar and data logging capabilities, so that's not an extra add-on. You can just have that with each of the systems. The flexibility of the install. So we have a couple agencies, one of them nearby, Edmonds, Washington. They've got temporary locations for these. They've decided that after a while, they lose their luster and people get used to them and maybe start to ignore them. So they've got a handful of stations around the city with quick disconnect kits. So they are able to just move the signs around as needed, hook them up to the solar panel, and then move on to the next location. So citizens generally like radar feedback signs. They have better yield rates than speed bumps, and they're not nearly as annoying as crushing one of those when you're in a hurry. This is an interesting one. Even 5 miles an hour really does make a difference. Vehicle traveling at 20 miles an hour only kills somebody 1 out of 10 times. I say only, but vehicles traveling at 30 miles an hour, you have a 50% chance of survival. But a vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour, you only have a 1 out of 10 chance of survival. So radar feedback signs are well suited for school zone districts, pedestrian areas, neighborhoods, and even rural roadways. SpeedCheck's visible and easy to maintain. This slide shows you some of the differences between SpeedCheck and some of the competition. As I mentioned, the MUTCD only allows or only recommends 18-inch digits, both letters and numbers, or 15-inch digits, letters or numbers. Those fun smiley faces and frowny faces and thumbs up that you see, those are not MUTCD compliant. Carmanah's 7-segment design with the slowdown message is clear, simple, easy to read. What you'll notice with the Carmanah sign is they have a directional plate that goes over it, so you can only see it when you're right at the right place driving up. This reduces people from testing how fast they're going, speeding through, and then looking over at the speed sign, because with Carmanah they won't be able to see it. So I don't have a video embedded here, but essentially the Carmanah speed beacon signs are pretty vandal resistant, vandal proof. In this demo video, the engineers at Carmanah are dropping a cannon onto the SpeedCheck sign. In the later video, they're able to jump on it. So I encourage you to get on Carmanah's website or Western's website and go to our Carmanah page, and you'll see some of the testing that went through. They put it through an ice cannon, they jumped on it, they threw things at it, and you know, if these are going out in the street and planning on them being permanent installations, you're going to need something extremely durable out there. School beacons, again, E, F, or G series. With the F series, you're able to add a third-party programming device. Some people add cellular modems. Western Systems provides an applied information modem, which is harnessed into the solar panel, the battery, and the LED. So not only do you get the benefit of scheduling remotely from the comfort of your office or home, you also can program it to give you notifications when your solar panel is not working or your battery admittance drops below a user-defined level, or if your LED is not going on. Another cool thing they've started adding to these, I think it only costs maybe $50, is a knockdown sensor where it's calibrated so that if you go beyond 15 degrees of the upright position, it sends you a notification, and that's your cue that your sign's been hit or knocked over. So the whole idea with third-party devices is making it easier for the technicians to ascertain things that are wrong with their beacons without having to go out in the field. WashDOT did a study that shows that school zone signs reduced driver speeds by 5 to 7 miles an hour, a lot better than the typical 20 miles an hour when children are present, or flag signs that we're starting to see pop up. Essentially, you guys saw that previous slide that showed just how big of a difference it makes in survival rates, getting people to slow down. LED enhanced signs. These are relatively new. They're starting to pop up. They now are MUTCD compliant. So the idea is that you take a regulatory sign and you stick LED rings along it. If anybody's interested in trying one of these, they use the exact same solar engine as the other Carmanah systems. So it's possible that you could try out a 12-inch post top beacon on top of your stop sign, and then decide, no, I want to try an LED enhanced sign. All you'd have to do is get us to provide you a new harness, and you'd be off and running. So you can program that to flash 24/7, or you can use a calendar time clock, kind of treat it like almost like a school beacon. One of the use cases for that, you've got somewhere in the neighborhood that people are flying through, but you don't want that to be going off at night. So why don't you set it to trigger at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you can also program to dim the intensity at certain times. So a lot of flexibility in your installs. So drivers are prone to ignore static permanent signs more than double than LED enhanced signs. So even if you've got a stop sign is people get used to it, people miss it, they're not paying attention. These LEDs are bright and they definitely get people to stop. So we're looking in the city of Sammamish. They like the idea of these LED enhanced stop signs, but they want it to only trigger when there's a vehicle present. So that can save some solar power, but also increase driver yield rates because it's flashing the second they drive up. So we can provide a little radar that also just mounts right there on the pole, and we'll just make sure there's not too many trees so we can make sure it's sustainable. So you'll see a lot of RRFBs out there. There's probably, I can think of almost a dozen companies that are making them. So Carmanah difference really is in their efficiency. When you're looking at their light bars, their optics, their solar panels, we can place a couple of competitors' solar panels next to ours, and it'll be maybe a 30-watt panel will be the same size as a Carmanah 20-watt panel. They've just really maximized efficiency by designing all of their light bars and optics in-house. So the RRFB's optics can produce 300% of the required SAE J595 light output. LEDs are directed towards the drivers, So a lot of these lights are just bright and they flash all over the place. Well, Carmanahs are very directional just for the oncoming traffic. There's also a light on the side of the light bars. You won't see this with all manufacturers, but that just gives the pedestrians confirmation that the lights are on instead of them having to peer around the corner onto the street and look up. Energy management system. So this is kind of the key to Carmanah's design. It's a single high efficiency LED drive circuit. So that piece that you see in there, we call it the EMS, that's unified across all of the products. So this makes it easier for troubleshooting, for changing out parts. An RRFB EMS will fit in a 24-hour flasher EMS. That's because each of them has the onboard capabilities to drive any of the LEDs that Carmanah provides. So instead of having a big a big flasher, you see a lot of flasher cabinets. They've got a PDC flasher, same size as one you might have in your cabinet. Flasher's integrated into this charge controller board, so you've just got just one item to deal with there. The radio they use is a 2.4 gigahertz radio. This is the same radio that used for home Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. But if you're concerned about interference, Carmanah has 15 channels that you can toggle along. So I had a situation here in the Puget Sound where there were 6 RRFBs all along a road, same road going down a corridor. And you just had to make sure that I think we ended up setting it at 2, 5, 8, and all the way up the road there, just to make sure there wasn't any crosstalk. A lot of the other manufacturers don't provide nearly as many channels along the spectrum to reduce interference. So be it 900 megahertz or 2.4 gigahertz, there's a lot of other devices out there that are competing for the same radio airway space. So having the ability to change it as a best practice, if there are issues or you see the RRFBs are being triggered, just go in there and change the channel. Carmanah is set up as a simple peer-to-peer network. A lot of RRFBs, or I guess school beacons, they're set up as master and slave, so to speak. So when one side gets hit, you have to figure out which one it is. Is it the access point, or is it the station? And then that normally they cost different amounts, and it makes it hard to keep spare parts around. All of Carmanah's systems are equal peers, so to speak. So if one knocks down, it doesn't matter which side it was on. Any replacement will suit. Simple user interface. So every single one of the Carmanah systems has this simple 3-button OBUI, onboard user interface, located on the front of the EMS chassis. All of the systems, if you were to open up the cabinet, it would have a four character messages silkscreen on the side, so you can toggle through each of the menus to change things like duration, the channel, a flash pattern. This is also where you'd go in to check the status of your battery. So you can see on the sub menu there, BATT, good. And then you toggle through one more time, it's reading 13.03 volts DC. So a lot you can do on there. This is also where you do your programming. If say you have an RRFB knockdown, but you've got this EMS from a new school beacon, well, you have to go in, change the input, make sure the input is set to button, because now you're programming it to a button, and then toggle through to calendar and make sure the calendar is turned off. So this is where Carmanah gets all of this flexibility to have one controller controlling all the products. A lot of LED manufacturers out there are using off-the-shelf components that are, not actually made for traffic. Carmanah's efficient and perfect purpose-built design. Same thing with the controllers. They're made to be out in the elements, IP67 rated, and you can see in this infographic it's showing 3.4 watts compared to 10.7 watts. One of the concerns we see here in Washington State is the sustainability of solar. We've got that bad, or maybe it's good, but we've got this combination of there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of obstructions, and also there's not a lot of line power running all up and down the street. So solar seems to be the option, whether it's, like I said, to be meet sustainability goals, or whether it's just a lack of commercial line power. But it is a concern because of it's pretty dark up here, especially in the winter months. So Carmanah does what's called an energy balance report. What that does is it takes over 50 years of NASA data that tracks the sun path at a given latitude and longitude. It's then able to calculate how much power is available from the sun year round. Carmanah sizes all of their systems to have 30 days of autonomy within the batteries. So that means if you unplugged it from the solar system, each one of them should run about 30 days. But our goal is to make sure it can run November, December, January, all the way through. There really isn't a problem in too many locations during the summer, but you don't want to be out there in the middle of winter changing batteries. The energy balance report is going to tell you the main calculation you'll want to know there is the array to load ratio. That's going to show the solar array divided by the load that you're putting on the system. If it's not at least 1.2 to 1, that means that 20% more power or more available power is coming in than is going out. Carmanah will not recommend the system. The flip side of that is if you do go through with this energy balance report, Carmanah will guarantee sustainability of the system through the warranty period. Third-party devices. So third-party devices were kind of the pushing point for coming up with the F system. Essentially, before, Carmanah had a bunch of 10-watt solar panels out there. It didn't have the ability to grow or add any devices, but people liked it because it mounted on just a signpost. In order to get a third-party device, like an audible push button, you really had to go to a G-series cabinet. So the S series kind of splits the difference. It's a 33-watt solar panel. It's got enough space for the hardware that you'd need, but also enough firepower in the solar panel to sustain some of these devices. This is when it becomes really important to get an energy balance report from us to make sure it's sustainable, because you are adding a significant, relatively significant load. An LED itself flashing away does not use hardly any power, but once you start adding these devices, it certainly can. So what you have here is a radar that would be for activating when a vehicle drives up. They also have a trail sensor that you can put for passive activation that can grab, both bicyclists and walkers. Polara audible push button. Carmanah now supports Polara and Campbell audible push buttons. And the third item is an applied information cell modem. Main draw for that, like I mentioned, is remote programming and monitoring for school beacons, but you can also put those in RRFBs if you want to reduce your preventative maintenance of batteries and be getting the health of your RRFBs coming back to you, or maybe you want to do a study where you're trying to get counts. This infographic shows you where AI is applied. So we've got it in school beacons, we've got them in RRFBs, and also speed radar signs. Speed radar signs, a lot of people want the information coming back from those, such as driver speeds. There is, with just the data logging capabilities, you are able to get counts, average daily speed, that kind of thing. But if you want that articulated into an exportable PDF that you can, give to a police department or something like that, and you get a little bit more information putting a cell modem in it. Let's see, I can mention this miscellaneous. I think there's a couple slides here for use cases, but miscellaneous snow zone, floodgates, weather stations. Having the ability to, or putting that cell modem in it, gives you the ability to, or opens up possibilities of lots of other applications. So we've got cell modems controlling floodgates. We're using it as an RWIS system, so triggering certain notifications when water levels rise or when the temperature reaches a certain point. You could drive a warning sign like ice, watch out for ice on the roadway, something like that. SpeedCheck. So this is the radar feedback sign inside of glance. What this is showing you is a 7-day period, the trend, kind of a downward trend, and then the volume. So you can see, look for anomalies, look for places where people are particularly speeding. You can pick out data points that are specific as one person. So maybe they're always on a hurry to go to work or something. So you need to tell a police or somebody, hey, this person every day is going 60 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone. So this is a tool that aggregates all of that data for you. Monitoring, so that's the other thing that having a cell modem gives you. As I mentioned, it's tied into the beacon, so it's going to tell you the beacon state on or off. It's tied into the battery, it's going to show you the system voltage. Same thing with the beacon lamp state, and then it's tied into the solar panel, so it's going to give you your readings for your solar array voltage. This particular one is tied to a calendar, so you can see the next scheduled events. It's all off for spring break. This is a live look at Happy Valley Elementary down in Oregon. New products, R838 controller. So this is essentially just a 2.4 gigahertz remote. So instead of activating your 2.4 gigahertz radio from a push button, this one could be used in a fire hall or at a fire station. So it comes in 2 configurations, a wall mount or like a cigarette lighter. So you can plug it into your vehicle, press the button, and then flash warning signs, prepare to stop when flashing or something like that. So we've seen these used fire stations, police departments, even just coming out of your maintenance facility if you want to warn vehicles, and it works exactly like RRFB or circular beacon, but you're activating it remotely. The 2.4 gigahertz radio has about 100-yard line of sight range. So we've tried it around corners, within less than 1,000 feet, and it works pretty good. Universal cast mount. So this is, we call it the Pelco slip fitter mount. This is so that if you don't know quite yet what you're going to install it on, it gives you the flexibility. It can mount either the E or the F series, but it can also mount on square or round poles. So if you order one of these from Jason, you say, hey, I got this thing that looks like it's for a round pole. Stick it on the square pole and it fits in nicely. And then you screw in the locking nuts there, and you're good to go. The top is 1.5-inch threaded, so it twists right into the solar engine there. As Connor mentioned, we've got all of this information available. You can download this PDF, but we've got application guides, specifications, and a bunch more safety videos. So once you download this PDF, feel free to peruse those for any additional information you might be interested in. And I believe that's all I got. So if you guys could, any questions you might have, we welcome them at this time.
Yeah, thanks, Kai. We'll go ahead and get started on the Q&A process. So please use the chat feature within your GoToWebinar toolbar to ask any questions that you may have. So let me take a look here. Looks like we had a couple that came in from earlier for you, Kai. And the first one is, what frequency does the Carmanah radio use?
Yeah, they might have asked that before I went into that, but it's the 2.4 gigahertz.
All right, and the next one from earlier is, can I use an RRFB controller for a flasher?
An RRFB controller for a flasher?
Yes.
So the RRFB, rectangular rapid flashing beacon, it is the flasher. So if you're asking, can you use that for applications that aren't crossings? Sure. The solar engine portion of the system doesn't care what kind of LED it's driving. We just have to make sure we're matching up the intensity to what you'd like. But if I'm understanding the question correctly, can the RRFB be used for other sorts of warning systems? An example I can think of is the fire beacon system. Say you wanted, instead of a circular beacon to flash when the fire truck was going out, you wanted an RRFB to flash, sure, there'd be no problem with that. And let me know if that answers your question. I don't know if we can leave that open for a follow-up.
And we got another one that just came in here. I've seen radar speed signs with flashing white lights below the display digits. Is this the MUTCD, or is this MUTCD compliant?
It's not. The MUTCD is just the IA21 interim approval is just for the light bar itself. So any auxiliary items out there are not. It's not necessarily that you'd get in a lot of trouble for them, but they're not defined by the MUTCD. A lot of people will put LED tattle lights on there so they can be notified when the system's on. So like for a school flashing beacon or something, you could have a light going the other direction that indicates it's on, but those kinds of things are not defined by the MUTCD.
And just a couple notes on that, or follow up to that question, Kai. They said radar speed signs, not RRFBs.
Oh, okay. So they're seeing some white or some other flashing below the digits that are below the radar feet. Below the speed sign digits.
Yeah, so the lights flashed when drivers would speed.
Lights flash when drivers would speed. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I think I understand the question. So yes, if for a radar activated speed feedback sign, and this is how the Carmanah ones work too. You can it's user programmable to set the digits flashing at a certain speed. So say the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, you can set it to start flashing at 30, and then you could set it to say slow down at like say 40. I don't know off the top of my head, but the MUTCD does define the appropriate colors and the appropriate messages. So you can't, like I said, you can't have a frowny face. That's why the Carmanah sign's not a full matrix display, because everything that you want to display or is within MUTCD guidelines can fit on the sign. But yes, you can have flashing color.
All right, a couple more just came in here. Can the speed feedback sign be powered on and off daily and keep its settings?
Yes, so it doesn't, it holds that in its brains. It doesn't forget its settings. That's what a lot of people do. They'll program it just like a school flashing beacon. In fact, in school zones, a lot of times it's synced up to the school flashing beacon. So you'll have it flash from say 8 a.m. to 8:30, and then take a break while kids are in class, and then 9 a.m. All of the settings remain on board, and no changes are made unless you actually go in there and change them.
Great. Looks like last one here. Clackamas County is currently using FLIR infrared passive detection with RRFB. Any plans to standardize this with Carmanah RRFB?
So they're using FLIR. So what I found with the FLIR, I believe that's the TRAPI-1 passive sensor. Passive sensors are not MUTCD compliant unless you have the push buttons too. And what we found is they're huge power hogs. So I don't know about Clackamas County in specific, but I assume that they're all AC systems, which does give you the benefit of having all of that equipment right there on the sign. I've also found that the TRAPI-1 sensor is extremely expensive. The MS Edco product that Carmanah does provide out of the box is called a Trail and XPass sensor, and that's essentially doing the same thing. It's just not using infrared or video. So it's just using radar, which is kind of good in all conditions, and it's like 20% of the cost of a TRAPI-1 sensor. So I don't necessarily see them moving towards additional detection, but what I can say is that Western Systems is able to integrate any detection system you want into these if you have the power and the space in the cabinet. So you could have, if you're looking at the TRAPI-1, you could do an iTerra system, you could do a radar system, anything that you want up there. It's just a matter of how sophisticated you want your pedestrian detection to be.
Great. Thanks, Kai. That looks like all the questions that we got. So we appreciate everyone attending today's webinar and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.